Every choice has a consequence. On October 2nd, 1995, I took 23 physical steps. That was the distance from the car I was traveling in to what would become my new home. As I took those steps, I thought about my wife. I thought about my two children, Rob and Alex. So they were just little tykes at the time. I thought about my career. Up to that point, I was tax partner in a CPA firm. I had testified before Congress on various aspects of federal tax law, written articles in national magazines, taught continuing professional education courses in 30 states. I was Chuck Gallagher. I was a somebody. I thought about the church where I had been music director for 12 years. I literally thought about everything that defined my life. But on that day, as I took those steps, on the 24th step, I took my hand, pushed open the door, and stepped in to federal prison. On that day, I became 11-6-42-058, an inmate, what most people would define as a nobody, because every choice has a consequence. Hey, where did you come from? Well, let's say I'm about maybe 30 years into your future. Wow, that's crazy. So you mean we made it? Yeah, you can say we made it. Hey, look, if you stay around a little bit, I'll tell you exactly what happened. Amazing. And okay, whoa. And here's something you might need. Keys to the handcuffs. It'll make it a little easier. Okay, thanks. I'll be back in a bit. Now, some of you are asking, why is it that a convicted felon is actually doing a program on ethics and ethical behavior? And my response back is, well, who better than someone that understands how smart people can make dumb choices and, most importantly, how to prevent it. Now, let's be crystal clear. Ethical lapses do not start big. Jeff Skilling did not connect with Enron and say, we're going to create a fraud of magnanimous proportions to be recognized as one of the top 10 corporate frauds in the country. Bernie Madoff didn't start that way either. I didn't start that way. So let's think about this. This is really important. There are three primary reasons why people or organizations have ethical lapses. Now remember, we started off with individual, right? And the organization portion. But an organization is made of individuals. And remember, we talked a little bit about brain science. Rational thought, irrational actions. So let's think about the three primary reasons that people make unethical choices. The first is going to be financial problems. Okay? Now, I want to be clear with this for just a second. Most everybody is aware of someone that at some point has had a financial problem. If you go back to 2006, 2007, go back to 2006, 2007, and let's think about it for just a second. 2006, 2007, anybody in the country could have bought a house. You go to the financial institution to buy the house, and they said, I'm going to need to see a copy of your W-2 and your 1040. No, you don't. I'm going to do a no-doc loan. Oh, you're going to do a no-doc loan. So nothing was required. Now, again, 2006, 2007, anybody could have purchased a house. 2008, that changed dramatically. As the Great Recession kicked in gear, think about it. Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. Merrill Lynch was bought by Bank of America. Wachovia was bought by Wells Fargo. There was AIG was bailed out by the federal government. So was GM and Chrysler. I mean, it was crazy. And the number of people who either lost a job or who found that their very expensive home was now underwater. There were foreclosures abounding, short sales. It was financial chaos. Now think about this for just a second. Let's assume for a moment, I'm married. Let's assume for a moment that my wife makes $150,000 a year and I make $150,000 a year. So together we make $300,000. Okay, so let's play that out for just a second. So if I came home one day and said, baby, I've got some bad news. I lost my job today. We've got a financial problem. We've got twofold financial problem. One, who wants to hire a 60-year-old guy into a job making $150,000? I mean, people could look at me and say, you're male, pale, and stale. The chance I'm going to get that job is pretty slim. Now, my wife, on the other hand, still has her job, but we're living a $300,000 lifestyle now on half of the income. That is financial pressure. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to do something unethical, but what it does mean is we have the potential. The pressure is there. The temptation may be there. Okay? That's one. 3 methods. The other might be relationship problems. Now, let's just be practical. If I walk in one day and I'm talking with Jamie, my boss, and he says, Chuck, man, you're not looking too good. Is there a problem? And if I look back at him and say, man, my wife left me. I got back home from the trip that I was doing and everything was packed. She was gone. She said, I can't be in a relationship where you're gone all the time. That's a relationship problem. And let's be practical about that. If there's a relationship problem, it could be with your spouse. It could be with your parents. Relationship problems are really common amongst the baby boomers and Gen Xers because we're now responsible for caring for our parents. The shift has taken place. They have now become, in some respects, the children. And it's our responsibility. It adds pressure. Or it could be our teenagers. It could be our children or it could be our grandchildren. But relationship problems take you off of focus and put you into the temptation place where you're not using rational thought. It might be lizard brain. Now, let me ask this question. What causes an otherwise honest person to do dishonest things? Hey, let me take it from here. I'll tell the story. I'll step away. You see, it was 1987. I'll never forget this. January of 1987, and I get a call from my local banker, David. He was a city exec at NCNB. And I was expecting when the call came through that perhaps he was going to send yet another client. He was really good like that. You see, we went to the same church together. We were in the same Sunday school class together. I appreciated the fact that he sent us business and he liked the work that we did. So when they said he was on the line, I took the call with anticipation. But he said, Chuck, is there a problem? It looks like you're 2 months behind in your house payment. Okay, the truth was, I was 2 months behind in my house payment. What I did not want to admit to David or to anybody else was that my wife and I were overextended and underfunded. You see, our oldest son had been born November 30, 1986, and so of course we had the nursery done and we had the first Christmas, and so it was an explosive time financially. The best way to put it is I was robbing Peter to pay Paul. I just couldn't keep up with the bills. So when David said, Chuck, are you 2 months behind in your house payment? It was that lizard brain moment. I went from rational thought to fight or flight. And the first thing I did instinctively is I said, David, are you sure? Are you sure that payment hasn't been misapplied? Now, David's response was, well, Chuck, I don't think so, but let me check and I'll get back with you after lunch. Whew. Get back with me after lunch. Now, the truth was, I didn't want to admit to him that I was behind in my house payment because the first thing that went through my mind was, oh my gosh, if I admit that I'm behind in my house payment, then what happens? Well, he would probably think, well, why am I sending him business? I mean, if I'm sending him business and he's behind in his house payment and he can't manage his own financial affairs, how can he help other people manage their financial affairs? After all, that's what he's supposed to be doing. So consequently, this doesn't make any sense. Maybe I should send it to somebody else. And of course, if he sent the business to other people, then what happens? I make less money. And if I make less money and I can't pay my bills now, I certainly won't be able to pay my bills. My goodness, I could not admit that to David. That's lizard brain, by the way. Now, let's talk about this. What I want to do is I want us to look at the decision cycle. You see, the first part of this decision cycle is need. It was crystal clear when I got the call from David that I had a need. Now, in my head, the need was I needed to, one, catch those house payments up really quickly, and number two, in my mind, lizard brain, I had the need to make sure that he didn't know that I was not able to manage my own financial affairs. Everything starts with need. Now, as human beings, when we have a need, the second part of that cycle is we look for the opportunity.